An early September morning in Memphis began the way thousands of mornings had before it, quietly and without warning, unaware that it was about to become permanently etched into the collective memory of a city. On September 2nd, 2022, while most of the city was still asleep, 34-year-old Eliza Fletcher woke before dawn, following a routine she had practiced countless times. She was a kindergarten teacher, a mother of two young boys, a woman known by friends and family for her discipline, kindness, and unwavering commitment to the people she loved. Running in the early hours was her personal space, a moment of calm before the responsibilities of the day began. It was never reckless or impulsive. She wore reflective gear, followed familiar routes, and returned home before sunrise. That morning, she stepped out into the darkness, believing she would do exactly that again. At approximately 4:20 a.m., surveillance cameras near the University of Memphis captured what would later become some of the most haunting footage in the city's modern history. The grainy video showed Eliza jogging along her usual path when a dark SUV suddenly pulled alongside her. In the brief seconds that followed, a violent struggle unfolded. Eliza fought back, pulling away, dropping one of her running shoes in the chaos. But the attacker was stronger and more determined. Within moments, she was forced into the vehicle, which sped away into the darkness. The entire abduction lasted less than a minute. By the time the SUV disappeared from the frame, Eliza Fletcher was gone. When Eliza failed to return home, her husband immediately knew something was wrong. Her phone was unreachable. Her route was empty. As the sun rose, concern turned into panic, and panic quickly became a full-scale emergency. Memphis police were notified, and within hours, a massive search effort was underway. Officers canvassed neighborhoods, reviewed surveillance footage, and retraced Eliza's running path step by step. Volunteers, friends, fellow teachers, and complete strangers joined the search, driven by the shared hope that she was still alive somewhere, waiting to be found. The discovery of Eliza's abandoned running shoe near the university campus marked a chilling turning point. Investigators recognized it as a clear sign of struggle, and the case was immediately treated as a kidnapping. Crime scene technicians combed the area for evidence, carefully preserving the shoe and the surrounding pavement. DNA was recovered from the shoe, and that single piece of evidence would become one of the most critical elements in identifying the man responsible. As the investigation intensified, police began reviewing traffic cameras and private security footage throughout the area. One vehicle appeared repeatedly near the abduction site, a dark SUV later identified as belonging to Cleotha Abston. Surveillance footage showed the vehicle driving erratically shortly after the time of the kidnapping, raising immediate suspicion. Further review revealed even more disturbing behavior. After the abduction, the same SUV was seen being aggressively cleaned, both inside and out at a car wash. To seasoned investigators, this was not the behavior of an innocent man. Cleotha Abston was not an unknown figure to law enforcement. His criminal history dated back more than 2 decades. In 2000, he had been convicted of kidnapping a local attorney at gunpoint in Memphis, forcing her into a vehicle and holding her captive before she managed to escape. He was sentenced to 24 years in prison, but was released early after serving roughly 20 years. The parallels between that crime and Eliza Fletcher's abduction were impossible to ignore. A man with a known history of violent kidnapping had been free, living in the same city, driving the same type of vehicle captured on camera at the scene of a new disappearance. When police brought Abston in for questioning, the evidence against him quickly mounted. The DNA recovered from Eliza's running shoe was a match. Surveillance footage placed him at the scene. Witness accounts and vehicle tracking data filled in the gaps between the abduction and the hours that followed. What investigators uncovered painted a grim picture of a crime that escalated rapidly from kidnapping to murder. According to the findings later presented in court, Eliza Fletcher was killed shortly after she was abducted. The autopsy revealed that her cause of death was a gunshot wound to the head combined with blunt force trauma. The randomness of the attack was one of its most disturbing aspects. Eliza did not know her killer. There was no prior connection, No personal motive, no warning signs. She was targeted simply because she was there, because she was alone, because a predator saw an opportunity. For days, the city of Memphis remained suspended between hope and dread. Vigils were held. Social media filled with messages demanding justice and accountability. Parents altered routines, runners stayed indoors, and a deep sense of vulnerability settled over the community. When Eliza's body was discovered on September 5th, 2022, behind an abandoned house approximately 7 miles from the abduction site, that fragile hope finally collapsed. The confirmation of her death sent shockwaves through the city, transforming fear into grief and anger. The location where Eliza was found told its own story. It was isolated, neglected, a place chosen deliberately to hide what had been done. Investigators worked methodically, documenting every detail, knowing that the case would be scrutinized closely. There was no doubt now that this was not a missing persons case, but a homicide of the most brutal kind. As the legal process began, attention turned not only to the crime itself, but to the system that had allowed it to happen. Questions were raised about Cleotha Abston's release from prison, about parole decisions, supervision failures, and whether warning signs had been missed. For many, Eliza Fletcher's death became a symbol of a broader failure, not just of one man's actions, but of a justice system that had given him a second chance he ultimately abused in the most violent way possible. During the trial, prosecutors presented a case built on evidence rather than emotion. Surveillance footage was shown frame by frame. DNA analysis was explained in precise detail. The timeline of events was reconstructed carefully, leaving little room for doubt. The defense had little to counter the overwhelming weight of proof. The jury did not take long to reach a verdict. Cleotha Abston was convicted of first-degree murder and aggravated kidnapping. The sentence reflected the severity of the crimes and the irreversible damage they caused. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, ensuring that he would never again walk free. For Eliza's family, no sentence could truly deliver justice, but it offered a measure of finality, a confirmation that the man responsible would never harm another innocent person. Eliza Fletcher's story did not end with the verdict. Her name became a rallying cry for safer communities, for better protections for women, for accountability within the criminal justice system. Her life, defined by care, dedication, and love, stood in stark contrast to the violence that ended it. She was not just a victim. She was a teacher who shaped young lives, a mother whose children would grow up without her, a runner whose simple morning routine was stolen from her. In the aftermath, Memphis changed. Early morning runners adjusted routes or ran in groups. Universities increased security patrols. Conversations about public safety grew louder and more urgent. Eliza Fletcher's death forced the city to confront uncomfortable truths about risk, prevention, and responsibility. True crime stories often blur into statistics, names lost among countless others. Eliza Fletcher's case resisted that fate. It remained personal, human, and deeply painful because it reflected a universal fear that ordinary routines can be shattered without warning, that violence can erupt in the most familiar places, and that survival is sometimes determined by forces beyond control. What happened to Eliza Fletcher was not the result of chance alone. It was the result of a predator given freedom, of a moment of opportunity seized, and of a life extinguished far too soon. Her story stands as a reminder of what is lost when systems fail and of the enduring impact a single act of violence can have on an entire community. In remembering Eliza, the focus remains not on the man who killed her, but on the life she lived, the people she loved, and the void her absence left behind.